Hey, good morning. It's Mazzy. Welcome back to the channel. I was about to get up and customize this t-shirt before this presentation. I think I wanted to change it to "It's the fucking music, you wankers." That gives you a clue. I'm about to tell you, if you haven't watched the Steve Westman show, or if you haven't gone to the Rhino site, the latest, the newest Rhino High Fidelity record is "Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols." Now, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit because I know there's going to be some naysayers. Do punks need audiophile? Forget the audiophile term. Throw that out, okay? We want a good sounding record. Now, we'll see. I haven't heard this yet. I don't have a copy of it yet. This is my original version UK release from 1977. This was originally released in October 77 in the UK. It was released a few weeks later, November, in the US on Warner Brothers. And there was a version out a couple weeks early. They jumped the gun. Barclay Records in France jumped the gun. And Virgin rushed this out, leaving off the track Submission on the first pressing. This is that first pressing without Submission, but that was included on the American Warner Brothers release. Now, as far as I know, this is going to be pressed, cut from the copy tape, which I guess Warner Brothers has, so it's the American edition. The only other change between the UK and the American, the last two tracks on side one are reversed, traded out. Problems and God Save the Queen. It ends with God Save the Queen instead of Problems, I think. So that, I don't know why that happened initially, but that is the case. So my original UK copy, the rare version with this blank back cover. If you ever see this, grab it. It's an excellent version. It'll be interesting to see a comparison. I've never had the American version. Now, as I recall, didn't the American version have the orange cover, or was that a variation? So we'll see what Rhino has. And I'm sure by the time you're watching this, it's already there for pre-sale. And I think this is an excellent choice. This is a left field choice for them. For the Rhino releases for this Warner Brothers things. Thank God it's not another Led Zeppelin. Thank God it's not Black Sabbath. Thank God it's not a fucking Foreigner record, okay? It's Never Mind the Bollocks, one of the great punk seminal records of all time. Now, there are some issues with this band and this record. Now, of course, you got Sid Vicious, not even on it, pretending to play bass on one track. I'll get to that in a minute. But you got Johnny Rotten, of course. You got Paul Cook on drums. You got Glenn Matlock, who left the band early. He played on the first couple of singles, I believe, but not on the entire album. And of course, you have Steve Jones, that great guitar player in the band, who was a really good guitar player. And he played most of the bass parts. Him and Glenn Matlock played the bass on this record. And even the one track where apparently Sid Vicious, thank God he was sick and in the hospital during most of the recording of this record, because Steve Jones overdubbed the bass. The one track, apparently, he played bass on, they tampered it down. He looked the part, but he was a terrible musician, a terrible bass player, and his part was brought way down in the mix and replaced by Steve Jones's playing, which made it a good record. Now, this record was co-produced by Chris Thomas, who would later go on to produce The Pretenders and a lot of great records and new wave and punk records into the 80s and into the 90s. So despite what people think, this is a really well-recorded rock and roll record. So doing, quote, the audiophile version of it does make sense. And, you know, it's been in and out of print. It's not a particularly rare record in the American Warner Brothers, but it's not exactly a cheap record either. So I applaud them doing this. We'll see. I don't know who wrote the essay yet. Again, on the site and on the Westman streams, I'm sure by now you can read that. But what a great record. I mean, this plays like a greatest hits record. This is a kick-ass rock and roll record, and yet it's not perfect. I mean, Johnny Rotten had a terrible voice, but his intonation, his presentation works. This band works as a cohesive unit. Political as hell. Half of it is the music, and half is the fucking attitude of this band. So with help from their manager, Malcolm McLaren, they get signed to EMI Records, and they go ballistic. They assault verbally assault the world in the UK, and eventually EMI drops them. And then later they get signed, they get picked up. We're going to do it. A&M Records. I mean, Jerry Moss and Herb Alpert, can you imagine working with the Sex Pistols? And of course, the band goes in and just decimates the A&M office. A&M drops them. Of course, the young label of Virgin Records comes to the rescue. And think about it. Virgin was really a record company that got known for putting out Tubular Bells, and then those elongated, boring, syncopated, time change prog records. That was their thing. And of course, signing the Sex Pistols put them on the map even bigger than they were. And this record in the UK shot up the first week to #1. In the US, I think it shot up to number 106 in the United States. But this is a really good record, and it is an important record in terms of the punk world. Of course, it's not the first punk record that became known and famous. Of course, the year before, the Ramones were the ones. But these records can sound good. A lot of punk records, obviously the ethos of punk, and it's DIY and do it yourself and homemade and lo-fi and terrible playing, instrumentation. But even though they weren't like the greatest musicians at the time, they were pretty tight. Their rhythm section was pretty tight. When you listen to those guitar licks of Steve Jones there, and of course the bass playing of Glenn Metlock, and of course then Steve Jones overdubbing the bass, and Stu Cook on drums. They're a tight band. And even Johnny Rotten's intensity works on this record. So I think this is a cool-ass record, and it's a left of center. It's a left turn that Rhino did right now with doing all this other boomer music. This is boomer music. This is 1977, 1978 period of the short-lasting band. What do they last? 2-3 years tops in terms of them growing and playing, and then end of it. Now, I saw them at their final show. I believe it was mid-January 1978. They played Winterland. Winterland holds over 5,000 people. And Bill Graham, who produced those shows at Winterland, hadn't really done a lot of punk shows. And I tell you, when I saw them, it was great seeing the Sex Pistols. Nobody knew it was going to be their last show, but they were terrible. They were, of course, they assault the audience, but that's part of the shtick. And if you watch the YouTube videos of them playing, and there was a recent live release, kind of a semi-official bootleg of that Winterland show, they're pretty bad, but it kind of still holds up. But I tell you, that night, the Avengers and the Nuns, the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area punk bands, were far better than the Sex Pistols. And that's an infamous show, of course. It was the last crash and burn. Of course, we know what happened to Sid Vicious. Terrible bass player. He's like a poser bass player. But I just want to say this is a cool-ass, kick-ass record. And I think it's an interesting choice for Rhino High Fidelity. Now, there's going to be a lot of naysayers saying punk records should never be audiophile. Punk records, if they're well recorded, should sound as best as possible, like any record. And so it'll be interesting to see how this sounds. I look forward to comparing it to this Virgin UK record. I have heard the Warner Brothers. I do not have it. There's some pressings over the years that just sound kind of flat and dull. So maybe this will be a hot press, a hot cut. It should be in your face. It doesn't have to be high sonically, but it needs to be intense. So I'm looking forward to see how this sounds. And I think it's an excellent choice. And it's a record that maybe is not on the list, on the request list. I've been reading the forums. I've been reading people on YouTube talking about what's coming and what they want. This hasn't been on the list at all. But I think if people don't realize this is a Warner release in America, again, a Virgin in the UK, and it was a perfect candidate for this. And I think, again, right now, it's a great choice. And the politics of it, the assault of this band is perfect for the times we are in, because we're living this fucking shit right now anyway. So I applaud Rhino for turning left when they could have gone straight ahead or turned right. Never mind the bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols. And the final note, back in the 90s, Nevermind by Nirvana got the name from this. And basically Johnny Rotten said, fuck that shit. How dare them do that? So this is a good excuse. I should have done the warning at the beginning about there's going to be some vulgar language in here, but I did say it in the thumbnail. So if you're upset about that, I'm sorry. I don't feel sorry for you. But when you're talking about the fucking Sex Pistols, you tossers, that's how you got to talk. That's how you treat this band. So thanks for watching again. Mazzy loves you.